Have you ever felt like the world sees you in black and white, while others seem to shine in vibrant colors, even without trying? There are people who walk across a room and everyone looks away. But there are others who don't even need to walk. They simply exist, and the environment bows to their presence. This has nothing to do with beauty, nor with money. It has to do with audacity. And audacity, contrary to what you've been taught, isn't something you're born with. It's trained, honed, summoned like an invisible weapon that cuts where words can't reach. We live in an era where everyone has a voice, but few have a presence, where everyone wants attention, but almost no one has the courage to be truly seen. Because being seen implies being judged, being rejected, being hated, and so most hide behind the curtain of neutrality. They say what is acceptable, dress like everyone else, think like the group, so as not to risk standing out. But here is the cruel paradox. The fear of not being accepted is what makes you be ignored. Cowardice makes you invisible. Boldness, even if wrong, makes you unforgettable. Robert Greene, in his analysis of seduction and power, reveals that the most influential individuals in history were not just intelligent or beautiful. They were magnetic because they were audacious. They allowed themselves to be controversial. They created tension. And that's what you need to understand. Desire, whether sexual, social, or intellectual, is born from friction. From the friction between what is expected and what surprises. A pretty face may attract attention, but it is the bold attitude that captures the soul. The world is already saturated with pretty faces. What it desires now is someone who has the courage to disrupt the pattern. And here's the secret that most self-help and seduction manuals don't dare tell you. Desire is not democratic. It is brutally selective. It respects neither logic nor justice. Desire bows to those who master tension, and tension is only accessible to those who dare to provoke. Notice, the most desirable people are those who represent some kind of danger. The danger of challenging, of contradicting, of taking what others only ask permission to touch. And that's exactly why this video isn't about ready-made formulas, memorized phrases, or posture tips. This is about transforming your base energy, making yourself a presence that occupies the space even before you speak. This is about learning to use your audacity as an invisible signature that triggers desire without needing to ask permission. It doesn't matter if you're shy, ordinary, or inexperienced. I'll show you how even the most ignored person can become magnetic when they discover the power of being bold in the right dose. But be warned, the boldness taught in this video isn't blind arrogance, nor foolish presumption. It's a subtle mastery between internal control and external tension. It's the game of seeming dangerous enough to intrigue, but reliable enough to become addictive. And to get there, you'll have to abandon the passive character they've created for you. You'll have to question what you've been taught about being nice, polite, or agreeable. Because those labels hide a dark truth. They are the golden shackles that tame your instinct for conquest. What you're about to learn isn't just how to be more attractive. It's how to become the kind of person no one forgets, the kind that disturbs, intrigues, challenges, and precisely for that reason, awakens desire. Welcome to the forgotten art of strategic boldness. And get ready. After today, there's no going back. You won't be able to tolerate your lukewarm version anymore. Neither will the world. It's possible to be 100% correct, respectful, polite, kind, and still be ignored by everyone. This isn't just cruel, it's real. We live a daily contradiction. Society preaches that we should be agreeable, but rewards those who assert themselves. Being nice guarantees acceptance, but not admiration. And in the art of attraction, influence, and conquest, being accepted is the same as being forgotten. Because the brutal truth is that nobody desires what is handed to them on a silver platter, without tension, without friction, without risk. The myth of the nice guy or the good girl is one of the greatest social poisons ever distributed. From a young age, we are taught to be obedient, not to cause discomfort, to please in order to be loved. But the result is a generation of frustrated people who suppress their desires to fit into roles that nobody really admires. Too agreeable to awaken passion, too polite to bother, and for that very reason, invisible to those who really matter. Robert Greene, in The Art of Seduction, calls this type of behavior anti-seductive. He doesn't speak with contempt, he speaks with lucidity. The anti-seductive person is someone who lives defensively, who is afraid of being rejected, and therefore never takes risks. They live to be accepted. And because they live this way, ironically, they are never truly desired. Because desire is not born in the comfort zone. Desire is born from tension, and tension demands contrast. It demands opinion. It demands the courage to provoke something that may or may not please. Here enters the first brutal contradiction that few dare to face. The opposite of desire is not hatred. It is indifference. A person who provokes anger is still perceived, still generates emotional impact. But most today are ignored, invisible. Nobody hates them, nobody loves them, just nobody notices. And the reason is simple. They are so afraid of being rejected that they fade before they even shine. Think about it. How many times have you remained silent to avoid causing discomfort? How many times have you tried to be nice hoping someone would like you more for it? And all you got was more distance, more disinterest? Social life is full of behavioral zombies. People who walk, talk, smile, but have no gravitational pull. They have no core. They don't have a single daring trait, and that makes them disposable. Psychology has already proven the human brain responds more intensely to the unpredictable than to the certain. That's why you can fall in love with someone who ignores you, challenges you, or provokes you, but never with someone who treats you with the predictability of a bank customer service interaction. What attracts is not certainty. It's doubt. It's the, does he want me? What did she mean by that? Why did he disappear? These small shocks of tension are the true engines of seduction, and their root is audacity. The big problem with being agreeable is that it never creates contrast. It tries to mold itself to the other person's taste, and in doing so loses its essence. But seduction demands identity. It demands a signature. It demands risk. No one falls in love with a beige wall. Passion is always a dance with the abyss, and those who are afraid to dance die in the emotional stands of life. Consider the classic example of Ted Mosby, the character from How I Met Your Mother. Ted is kind, romantic, and polite, and yet he is repeatedly rejected. Why? Because he tries to win people over with logic and emotional obedience. He declares his feelings, does everything right, shows his worth, but he doesn't create tension. He doesn't activate primal desire. He tries to negotiate love with his resume, and love, desire, lust don't follow the logic of LinkedIn. In contrast, characters like Don Draper from Mad Men or Thomas Shelby from Peaky Blinders do everything society condemns, but they attract like magnets. Not because they are bad, but because they are intense, because they impose their presence, because they dare. Don Draper, by silently lighting a cigarette and looking deeply into someone's eyes, conveys more sexual tension than 50 sweet words from a gentle man. And that's what few understand. Attraction isn't in the right gesture, but in the energy. And energy demands contrast, demands presence, demands subtle transgression. Jordan Peterson, a clinical psychologist and author of 12 Rules for Life, addresses this in depth. In one of his lectures, he states, "A man is only truly harmless when he is dangerous, but chooses to be peaceful." This means that true power lies not in never causing discomfort, but in being able to cause it, and choosing not to do so all the time. Sweetness is only admirable when there is strength behind it. Otherwise, it sounds like weakness. And weakness, in the language of the unconscious, is not charming. It is repulsive. That's why Casanova, the greatest seducer in history, never asked permission to flirt. He created tension. He invaded with elegance. He tested limits. And that's precisely why he was desired. Not because he was merely handsome, but because he was provocative. He understood the instinctive game of power and knew that gentleness only works when it comes packaged with desire. And desire is fueled by the tension of can or can't. If you want to be desired, it's not enough to be good. You need to be noticed. And to be noticed, you need to be unsettling. You need to provoke something. You need to disrupt the pattern. You need to challenge the other person, even if it's with a look, a bold phrase, a laugh at the wrong time. Because the unconscious of the person on the other side picks this up as a sign of value, of courage, of social strength. Of course, this doesn't mean being aggressive or arrogant. Boldness isn't disrespect. It's a distinctive presence. It's the difference between saying, "Can I ask you a question?" and simply giving a direct look, followed by a phrase that breaks the monotony of the obvious. It's knowing how to enter a conversation as if you have something to offer, not something to beg for. And this, however subtle it may seem, completely changes the chemistry of the interaction. In practice, you can start small. Test controlled discomfort. Stop responding immediately to messages. Ask a provocative question in a lukewarm conversation. Enter a room with a firmer posture, and don't apologize for taking up space. The other person's brain will perceive these micro-boldnesses as signs of self-worth. Perceived value is the first trigger of desire. But for this to work, you'll have to kill a part of yourself. The part that believes being nice is enough. The part that's afraid of being rejected. The part that prefers to be invisible rather than criticized, because that part is your greatest enemy. And as long as it controls your actions, you will continue to be ignored by the people you most want to impress. Seduction, in its rawest form, is a dance between light and shadow. And those who only live in the light end up burning their own intensity. The courage to enter the shadows, to provoke, to challenge, to take risks, is what transforms you into a presence that leaves a mark. Because in the end, agreeableness is the comfort of mediocrity. And nobody desires what doesn't disturb their inner peace. Therefore, if you want to be desired, start by stopping trying to please. Please less. Dare more. Because in the real world, the nice guy ends up alone. And the good girl becomes a confidant of other stories she wanted to live. Meanwhile, the daring ones write the scripts that others merely watch. The difference between someone attractive and someone ordinary is rarely in physical traits. It's in the energy. And this energy, when investigated at its root, reveals a pattern. The most magnetic are, invariably, the most daring. They are not the most beautiful, nor always the most likable, but they are the ones who dare. Those who don't ask permission to exist. Those who provoke the world, instead of waiting for permission to touch it. Daring, in this context, is not just a matter of courage. It's a primitive language. A non-verbal code that communicates, I authorize myself. And this type of communication is profoundly attractive because it conveys value. The human brain is programmed to respond to what is rare, to what is scarce, to what behaves as if it already has power. That's why the shy person pleases, but the daring person conquers. The fearful person enchants, but the audacious person leaves a mark. And the indecisive person, however charismatic they try to be, ends up overshadowed by those who master the art of acting without hesitation. Robert Greene, in the 48 Laws of Power, states with surgical precision, shyness is a social disease. Boldness intimidates, attracts, leads. This phrase is not merely provocative, it is a diagnosis. Shyness, socially romanticized as humility or sensitivity, is in practice a self-protective behavior. It is fear disguised as prudence. It is cowardice with a perfume of gentleness. And in the invisible war of influence, it is interpreted as weakness. Here is the first contradiction that haunts the well-intentioned. The more you try to protect yourself from the judgment of others, the more despicable you become in the eyes of the collective unconscious. People may even sympathize with you, but they will not desire you, because desire demands surrender. And no one desires what seems to beg for approval. The world loves those who act as if they don't need it. Cleopatra is one of the most striking examples of this dynamic. Egyptian queen, surrounded by empires and men who could destroy her with a single gesture. And yet, she did not bow down. She seduced kings, generals, and senators not only with beauty, but with audacity. Her political intelligence, her mastery of languages, and her personal magnetism made her more than a historical figure. She became a symbol of female power in its most dangerous form, the kind that doesn't ask permission, it simply conquers. Cleopatra's audacity was not gratuitous, it was strategic. She knew exactly the impact she had when she made her presence felt with a firm gaze, a firm voice, and undeclared intentions. That is the secret of seductive audacity. It doesn't need to justify itself. It doesn't explain itself. It simply appears and changes the chemistry of the environment. This chemistry has deep roots in biology. Neuroscience research demonstrates that bold behaviors activate areas of the brain linked to dopamine, the neurotransmitter of desire, pursuit, and curiosity. A simple gesture of boldness, more intense eye contact, an unexpected interruption, a defiant attitude, can elevate a person's perceived social value in seconds. This is primal. And that's why it works. Consider Muhammad Ali. He wasn't just a boxer, he was a cultural force. His phrases were sharp, his behavior provocative, his posture that of someone who knew exactly his worth. He didn't expect to be respected. He behaved like someone who was already respected, and the world simply agreed. That's the essence of magnetic audacity. It doesn't ask, it declares. Tony Stark in the Marvel Universe embodies this archetype in the pop imagination. Arrogant? Undoubtedly. But also unpredictable, creative, disruptive. Tony attracts because he breaks the mold. He doesn't follow the goody two-shoes playbook. He leads through boldness. And even when he makes mistakes, he makes them with style. He makes mistakes with personality. He makes mistakes with a kind of intensity that awakens desire even in his critics. Because the truth is that the world forgives almost everything, except mediocrity. Most men and women today try to conquer by being confident. But desire isn't born in confidence. It's born on the border between risk and control. A true seducer understands this and plays within that boundary. He approaches without being vulgar. He provokes without being offensive. He challenges without being aggressive. And this creates a tension that is practically impossible to ignore. Want a practical example? Think of a common interaction. Two people talking in a bar. One of them speaks carefully, tries not to offend, laughs at the other's jokes, tries to show interest. The other observes silently for a few seconds and then says, "You have a way of looking that seems like you're hiding something." That's it. The ordinary conversation turned into a game, turned into tension, turned into imagination. Because the second person dared to go off script, dared to provoke, dared to break the predictability. This kind of audacity is what transforms ordinary interactions into memorable moments. It's what separates the forgettable from the unforgettable. The "it was nice" from the "I need to see this person again." Because audacity, when well applied, creates emotional memory. It activates the mind, the body, and curiosity. And curiosity, my friend, is the first step of desire. But how can you be bold without crossing the line? The key lies in intention. The magnetic boldness doesn't act to offend. It acts to vibrate differently, to disrupt the pattern, to not be just another one. And this can be done with a simple gesture, a word, a posture. The secret is not to seek approval, but to provoke a reaction. Any reaction. That's why the first exercise to master boldness is to abandon the addiction to acceptance. Stop shaping your attitudes based on what others will think. Start acting based on what you want to provoke. Not to be applauded, but to be noticed, to be remembered, to be desired. Start small. Instead of praising, provoke. Instead of asking, affirm. Instead of hiding behind neutral words, dare to suggest with a look. Train your presence to be a disruption, not a repetition. Don't say what everyone says. Don't do what everyone does. Boldness resides in the conscious choice to be an exception. And remember, the world isn't fair. It doesn't reward the most prepared. It rewards the most perceptive. And being perceptive is a game of contrast, of intensity, of risk. That's why the bold advance while the cautious calculate. Because boldness, above all, is a choice. A silent declaration that you are ready to lose, and precisely for that reason, often, you end up winning. Desire, contrary to what it seems, is not sustained solely by initial intensity. It needs variation, contrast, pauses between shocks. Tension needs to breathe. Absence needs to become presence. Silence needs to transform into provocation. The human brain, addicted to patterns, quickly adapts to stimuli. Therefore, if you are bold all the time, you become predictable. And predictability, as we have already said, kills the mystery, and with it, desire. Robert Greene already warned, you must keep the other person in suspense. Never be a completely available presence. He was right. When you show yourself to be 100% predictable, the other person understands that there is nothing left to discover. And what doesn't intrigue doesn't hold your attention. On the other hand, when you know how to create small ruptures in the flow, disappearing, appearing intensely, changing your tone, challenging with a smile, you activate a brain mechanism called dopaminergic anticipation. It is the reward system that ignites when pleasure is promised, but not immediately delivered. This system is the same one that makes gambling addictive. The roulette wheel, the flirting, the dangerous romance, the message that takes too long to be answered, the almost given kiss, the interrupted glance, everything that could happen but doesn't yet. The true seducer doesn't give everything away. He paces, he provokes, he manipulates time. And with that, he transforms desire into addiction. This is where the concept of the 80-20 of daring comes in. 80% control, 20% transgression. It's not an exact formula, but a practical philosophy. The basis of your behavior needs to communicate self-control, value, posture, but from time to time you need to shock, to surprise, to break with the image you've created. This contrast is what keeps the fascination alive. It's what makes the other person think, I thought I knew him, but I don't know what to expect from him. Take James Bond as an example. He is the epitome of controlled risk. Cold, calculating, subtly arrogant. But suddenly, he acts. He kisses without asking. He kills without hesitation. He disappears. He reappears. He never explains himself. And precisely for that reason, he is irresistible. Not just because he is handsome or well-dressed, but because he is the only one in the room you can never fully decipher. He breaks the pattern at the right moment, and that makes him unforgettable. The same goes for women like Frida Kahlo, for example. She didn't seduce by following rules. She enchanted because she broke them all. Her gaze was an invitation and a warning. Her pain was raw sensuality. Her presence was a provocation to the aesthetics of the time. Frida wasn't just art, she was danger. A type of woman you admire and fear. Because she carried a rare kind of emotional audacity. She didn't need to please. She needed to impact. And that made her magnetic. Controlled risk is this: knowing there's a boundary and choosing to cross it intelligently. Not out of neediness, not out of haste, but strategically. It's not about using boldness to hide insecurity, but to reveal mastery. It's about knowing how to enter and exit an interaction, leaving more questions than answers. It's understanding that sometimes the most powerful presence is well-placed silence. Calculated absence, disappearance that creates doubt. And doubt in the unconscious is unresolved tension. And unresolved tension is accumulated desire. The problem is that most people, when they discover the power of boldness, overdo it. They start forcing intensity, making artificial provocations, rehearsing impactful phrases, but they forget that seduction isn't performance. It's rhythm, it's timing, it's a finely tuned instinct. And that's only built with a deep sense of self-awareness. You need to know your own impact. Know when to back off. Realize when you've given too much away. Identify the moment when the other person starts predicting your moves. And then, change the game. It's at this point that controlled risk becomes a dance. You distance yourself and create absence. Then you return with force. You create discomfort. Then you offer relief. You challenge. Then you offer space. This hypnotic movement is what keeps the other person's mind captivated. It's what differentiates a casual connection from an emotional addiction. It's what transforms a common conversation into a permanent memory. But be warned, this dance only works if you're not dancing just to impress. It demands real self-worth. It demands that you not be afraid to lose. May you be able to sustain silence, to endure the disapproving glance, to accept that sometimes, yes, you will exaggerate, you will fail, you will scare someone. And that's okay. Because the true power of audacity isn't in always being right. It's in being so magnetic that even your mistakes are seen as personality, as identity, as a trademark. Therefore, the question isn't whether you will dare or not. The question is, are you ready to be hated by some, to be desired by many? Are you ready to take the risk that comes with sharp authenticity? Because being audacious is dangerous, but it is precisely this danger that the world lacks, that the world yearns for. That desire, in its purest form, begs to find. You understood that seduction doesn't reside in a polite smile, but in the energy that challenges. It's not in ready-made phrases, but in a presence that occupies and surprises. And above all, you saw that audacity isn't a gift, it's a choice, a tool, a secret weapon that when used well, makes even the most skeptical feel something they can't explain. And here's a final truth that no one dares to tell you. Not even the greatest strategists were born ready. Robert Greene, the man behind the books that unmask power, was also once ignored. He was once shy. He tried too hard to please. He was once marginalized. And if this content had existed when he was young, raw, curious, invisible, he would have devoured every word. Because what you learned here is more than a seduction strategy. It's a manual for social warfare. A code that explains what no one taught you in school, at work, or in conversations with friends. Imagine Robert Greene, at 25, insecure in the face of the dominant figures in the publishing world. He himself admits, it took him years to understand how certain men dominated rooms with silence, while he needed arguments. If he had put on his headphones and listened to the forbidden manual, How to Trigger Desire in 60 Seconds, he would have understood that the world isn't driven by logic, it's driven by perception. And perception is shaped by those who dare to break the script. And that's exactly what you carry now. A map, a code, a differentiator. You no longer need to seek approval as social currency. You've learned to provoke, to manage risk, to be remembered. And in a world saturated with noise, whoever knows how to generate impactful silence becomes irresistible. Therefore, this video wasn't just about attraction. It was about learning to be the kind of person the world can't ignore. Because in the end, being desired isn't the end. It's the symptom. The symptom of someone who has learned to play with presence, with tension, with audacity. Now tell me, what are you going to do with that? Because from here on out, there are no more excuses. You already know what you need. And as Robert Greene would have said, if he could see you now, power smiles upon those who do not hesitate. So stand up, sharpen your presence, and step onto the stage as if you were already a legend.